From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicki Fisher, and our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be millionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with us and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode, and my name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicki.
And I'm Jennifer.
And that's it. Two hosts, well, three, I guess I count sometimes. But we have a returning guest. We have someone who is going to help us with our Racing 101 series, because you can't race a car unless you have a car or you know somebody who has a car. We've gone over this already. We did a cheat sheet before we started recording. And she is involved with the buying and selling of cars for her real life, which supports her fake life of racing. So we have returning guest, Miss Lara Vernon. Welcome back, Laura.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be back.
It's awesome. Returning guests are fairly rare, because nobody says.
Honored.
No, I don't think it's an honor. I just don't get it. Nobody says yes twice. So,
Well, I've been called worse.
very well.
You didn't have to call me crazy. I just assumed.
It's true. I mean, we did beat you for officially the first time in meet space at the race with Lucky Dog in Charlotte, and you were racing with Race Bar, so we know choices.
So you know I'm an okay person.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're just
All right.
not sure you make all the best choices.
Well, none of us would be here if we did, right?
True.
This is true.
Yes, this is very
We
true.
wouldn't be in training if we did.
Absolutely. That's right.
Forever in training.
Every time I look at the podcast logo, I keep saying that in training needs to be bigger. Anyway, so Miss Lara, in case somebody wasn't on or hasn't listened to your first podcast, which was fantastic, it was post Charlotte. Just in case they're not familiar with you, could you kind of give a little bit of background?
Sure. My name is Lara Vernon. I am a lifelong car nut. I have made that my everything, my job, my personal life, my hobbies, my interests, my free time. It all revolves around cars. I have a car dealership where I buy and sell fun enthusiast type vehicles, anything from vintage to modern, luxury, performance, limited production, clean, one of a kind, you name it. I've probably bought and sold it or consigned it, and have been into racing cars also a long time, but generally beyond the last 2 years, it was reserved to playing on my video game consoles because I couldn't afford to do it in real life, and only started racing about 2 years ago. Actually, not even. Autocross 2 years ago, road racing just about a year ago. And I am quickly, getting to know a lot of people in the community, winning some races, both autocross and with Lemons and iRacing, endurance racing, and hopefully a Champ Car win soon. But loving every second of it, minus the fact that I can't afford to put nice socks in my shoes, but it's worth it.
Those Nomex socks are expensive, so you got to be fireproof and fire safe. So
that's it, and I always end up losing just one of the pair that I have for each Nomex sock. So I think I'm on my third Nomex sock pair now. Got to figure out how they end up disappearing.
This is true. This is true. But someday you'll find them all, and you'll have like spares, plenty. So since you were on episode 138, recently you have just won the Daytona 24-hour.
I won with my teammates, and which is Swarm Racing, which, if you haven't heard about it, is a really cool organization that is supportive of amateur racers looking to network within the racing community and advance their amateur or professional racing career. The team owner's name is Dale Clow. He's pretty well known in the racing community. And so me and this ragtag bunch, yeah, we pulled the win, but in our split. So we're nowhere near as competitive of a level as majority of the, what did they have this year? I think it was 5,000 some odd teams, something like that. It was like 60
in the event.
split.
Yeah.
So something crazy like that. So yeah, we won our split, but you know, that's kind of like being the fastest potato rolling down the hill.
It's okay.
But we did a good job. We didn't crash the car for 24 hours and had a good fuel saving strategy, and yeah, brought it home. Pretty awesome.
So you won your first fake Rolex. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, being grown up in New York City, I've seen them. I've just never been given one. You know.
That's right.
Yeah.
So your Rolex made of electrons is now yours. You can wear it proudly, and just don't go through any metal detectors, because I'm sure something on TSA will go off with the electrons bouncing around like that. So you just keep it.
No,
at
they're made
home.
out of plastic. We should be good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're made of, okay. I didn't know if they were fictional.
Cereal box
look.
watch.
Very
Cracker
nice.
Jack box.
Oh,
Swatch
that's even,
version.
it's a Swatchish Rolex, but that's okay.
It's a Schmolex.
A Schmolex. You got the Rolex Schmolex. What's the difference? That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So since you are a self-proclaimed car girl from way, way back, and you do this not only for fun, but for a living. Last time we were on, we talked about having you come back on to talk about how you buy and sell cars, because I personally I'm not saying I'm pretty good at buying cars. I just do it frequently. The selling part, not so good at. The purchase price part, not so good at. But we end up with a lot of cars. So we thought that maybe we'd break it down into like what should we do when looking for a car? Is there some type of background or homework we should do? Should we just, look for the bright shiny one and go get that one? Or is there something possibly in between?
So I'm assuming you're referring to anything that's semi-collectible or something that you may want to end up reselling, because it depends. Obviously the rule of thumb with any car, whether it's collectible or otherwise, is that you should try to find a vehicle that has not got any rust and has not been in a heavy accident.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my phone is slipping and I'm trying to prop it up.
That's okay. It makes for great video that nobody else is seeing but us, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's like I'm floating through space.
A little bit.
Because I have a space background for anyone who thinks I sound like a lunatic. All right. I don't know if I can prop it up, so I'm just gonna stop fooling with it. Okay. Geez. So, as in terms of what you want to look for, definitely mileage isn't as important as maintenance history. And talking to the person who owns the car goes a long way. And if they've had it for a number of years and don't have any maintenance records saved, it can sometimes be difficult to gauge whether or not a car is going to be reliable for you in the long run, because I've heard it all. But minus the corrosion issue and the heavy hit issue, and I can go into a little more detail about what to look for when it comes to previous paint work and stuff like that. But if you have a nice shell, even if the mechanics are not so great, it's a whole lot easier to do engine swaps and transmission swaps than it is to cut out rust and repair it, or straighten frames, or find potentially filler and bondo and bodywork that you didn't know was there, and So yeah, I mean, buy with your head, not your heart. And I think that's the main thing that you're struggling with is you see a
Oh,
bright, shiny car you like and you think, ooh, what does it cost? I don't care. Take my money. Shut up and take my money. And every car that I've ever bought personally for myself, I've bought with that attitude
it's the
because
only
I want
one.
it and
I'll
I
never
want it
get it if
now.
I don't get this one.
Yeah, where else am I going to find another one? I want it and I want it now.
Yeah.
But buying
Such
as a
such a
dealer.
toddler mindset when it comes to cars.
Oh, that's how I always was too, though. And it's so funny that I ended up being in the car business because every car that I'd bought previous to starting my dealership for myself, I ended up losing money on, and not an insignificant amount either. But again, it was because I was buying with my heart and not my head. So one
So
thing you can definitely do is buy with your head until you have enough money from flipping the cars that you may not want exactly, so that you at some point can buy with your heart. So, and there's a lot of people out there willing to buy with their heart and not their heads. And that's what drives the price of a lot of these cars up that you would otherwise think have no business being sold for what they are.
that
So,
Mark IV Super for $1 million. I mean, it's well worth it.
what was that, like a 10-mile car? How many
Yeah.
miles did that car have?
Not many. Basically, not enough to keep it lubricated.
Jeez, that must have been like a one of one or something. And that's another point, right? Like a rare color combo can make a car worth a lot more money.
True.
And maybe that was one. Who knows? Because if it was just silver on black and it sold for $1 million, then I'm not sure whoever bought it knows the value of a dollar.
Well, some people $1 million isn't a dollar, so there's
Look
that
at Jeff
too.
Bezos.
Yep. So if we have, we can go over a few things, and we probably should. You can buy a car to be used as a, the fun daily. You can buy a car to be used as your collection. You can buy a car to be used for your HPDE track events, or you could buy a car that you plan on turning into a race car. And there's kind of different nuances to each of those, but the fundamentals are still the same. Make sure it doesn't have the rust. Ideally, isn't hit. And then depending on what else you're looking for, there's other things you should do. But the key is not to buy things at too high a price for what their actual value is.
Right. Right. And, with enthusiast cars, it's a little more tricky to find the owner that doesn't want top dollar, because most of the time when someone's really into a certain car that they own, they're going to keep up with the market trends and the forums and posts and what they're selling for. And so it'll be a little harder to find the right deal. And, as you may be perusing Craigslist or Facebook, you'll find the occasional post of a car that looks like it was owned by an enthusiast, and then about 10 paragraphs worth of a summary of what's been done to the car and, oh my goodness. And every excuse for why the car is priced at what it's priced at, with 180,000 miles, at 5,000 over retail. And those are the cars that you probably want to stay away from if you're looking for a good deal. But they could potentially also be really well maintained. And obviously, if the person who's selling them is willing to go into so much detail as to write, a 3-page story on it, chances are it was probably pretty meticulously maintained. But certainly not the car I'd buy if I were looking for the best deal.
If the posting starts with "I know what I have" or ends with "I know what I have," usually
when it does, the word "no" is spelled without the K and the W.
Yep. This is true.
Yeah. I mean, I can't pop my fan up. I'm sure that sounds terrible in the audio. The main thing though that I would say is, it's, if you want to get a good deal, you can't just look at the price someone's asking, because most of the time, if somebody's asking retail for their car, it's worth calling them just to chat about it, express interest, and you'll find that actually a lot of people once you start talking to them and they understand that you're not some scammer from Indonesia who's trying to get them to wire them a MoneyGram, are pretty open to offers. At least, if you make one and they refuse it, then at least that, they have your number to save in their back pocket. They may call you back, but you'd be surprised how many times I find a car that I like and someone's asking what I consider to be retail for it. And after talking to them, I get a good deal just because I inquire and negotiate over the phone. But
So
the majority of negotiation should be done in person. The phone should be a feeler type thing.
where are some of the reputable places that you look for a car?
Reputable.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you want to buy a car from a reputable place, you're generally not getting a good deal.
Well, I meant like on the internet. Do you have places that you might go looking, or do
Yeah,
you
well,
just-
I mean, the various marketplaces are always around perusing. So, being a small volume dealer, I have, it's very important for me to not only find cars that I can examine thoroughly before I buy them, but also to be able to make the maximum amount of profit per car. So, unlike these mainstream franchise dealerships and larger independent dealerships that can buy a car for 29,000 that's worth 30, and sell 300 of them a month and make their money that way by selling that and warranties and financing and all this stuff, I've got to make a pretty good lick per car that I sell. So it helps for me to buy privately. So I'm looking at Facebook Marketplace, I'm looking at Facebook groups, I'm looking at forums, I am looking at Craigslist, I am looking at OfferUp. Sometimes I'll find cars privately listed on Auto Trader, Car Gurus, that kind of thing. And Auto Tempest is a great resource for perusing those sites. And eBay too is also a great site for checking out, private individuals selling cars. But yeah, I mean, I dedicate probably 4 hours a day to browsing those various marketplaces.
Auto
So-
Tempest is my weakness.
Auto Tempest is wonderful.
It is.
If you're looking for something specific,
well,
if you're just looking for interesting cars,
or
it's
you
not
have
good.
40 different. Let me hold on. Let me check. I think I have 40 different Auto Tempest tabs. 41 different Auto Tempest tabs that I just refresh on a daily basis. Let's see what's there.
Let me hear them.
What cars?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We've got always looking for E46s. I've got a Renault 4CV. I've got let's see, what do we have here? We've got, I always look at the Boxsters and the Caymans, different styles of those. Let's see, what else do we have here? We've got Fiesta STs. I'm trying to get a friend of ours to either get a Fiesta ST or an 86 or an FRS or BRZ.
I had one.
I know, he's slow. Fiesta ST. Let's see what else we have here. We've got, I've got so many. Porsches, Fiat 500, Minis.
He's looking for racing.
Always fun.
Yeah.
I have
Fun
the standard cheapest Ferrari out there search. Never know.
What is that? The Dino or the 308 or what?
It's usually 308s.
Yeah.
So, but it's got to be a stick, so that makes the cheapest one not that cheap. So,
Yeah, that's probably 100% more expensive for a
at
stick.
least. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least.
Mhm.
At least. So since rust is such a big issue, do you try to keep your searches local to you or local to places where the rust isn't quite so bad, like the Southwest?
Well, I mean, I've seen cars from the Rust Belt that actually aren't rusty. And likewise, I've bought cars from South Georgia that are rusty. And, just because a car spent time up north does not mean that you're going to find corrosion. And that's one thing a lot of people overlook. So if you're considering a car from up north, the main question is whether or not that individual, A, drove the car year round, and B, if they did, whether they were good about getting the car washed. If they brought the car to a car wash once a week at least, chances are the corrosion didn't set in too badly at all. But it's all that salt on the road staying on the car that really ruins it. And in places where it remains below freezing, for 2 months straight, then the only option you have is to go through an automatic car wash.
Right.
So, I have a car wash here locally where, I have a monthly membership with my pickup truck. And so through the winter, I'm driving that mostly because I can wash it every day and it costs me $25 a month.
Right.
Most people don't want to spend, 5-6 car washes a month worth. I mean, that's over $100 in most instant car washes. So yeah, that's the thing to look out for sure. Don't let that scare you away. But when I'm looking personally, my main thing is if somebody isn't willing to at least snap a couple quick photos with their smartphone of underneath the car, with the exception of some people that are just like too old to know how to do it.
Right.
I generally don't go.
You have to see a certain level of interest on their end.
Well, yeah. I mean, they have to be willing to give me 5 minutes of their time to do that for me to want to drive 5 hours to go see a car, because I have, more than several times driven up to 8 hours one direction to go see something that someone has completely misrepresented. And it sucks, especially when you're hauling a big trailer and it's going to cost you $200 in fuel plus a whole day of your time.
Easily. Yeah.
So, rust is, I think, the worst thing people misrepresent, because someone can peek under a car, and most of these new cars especially, you can't see the frame. It's unibody, and most of the time there's plastic covering things, or the car sits too low to really get a good inspection. And and then when you get under the car, you look inside the wheel arches and strut towers and shock perches and bushings and things, and everything is just completely shot. Like, I've seen it to where the body mounts of a car have completely rusted away, or where the struts connect into the axles and lower control arms is like fused together by rust. I mean, just embarrassingly bad amounts of rust that people will just misrepresent and say, oh, a little bit of surface rust, and it's just like, it's horrible. People have different standards, I think, or just don't know.
Yeah.
It might be worth telling the guy to bring it to a local mechanic, before you make that investment in coming to see it, buying a plane ticket, whatever.
Do a pre-purchase inspection type thing.
Yeah. And most of these people are going to have, even if they're too dumb to figure out how to take a picture, and I shouldn't say dumb, but, technologically ignorant.
We use Techno-Amish. Techno-Amish is where we go.
I think even Amish people know how to use a smartphone.
They do.
Embarrassingly enough. But, even if they can't figure out how to send it to you, FaceTime's easy enough,
Yep.
Most people can do that. So that's better than nothing, I suppose. And if the person's not even willing to do that, then why are you going to waste a whole day of your time? Going to go, buy a plane ticket, whatever, I don't know. They're going to be hiding something. So
I found one of my Auto Tempest links. The Honda Beat is on my list right now.
Ooh, isn't that like a 10,000 RPM redline?
Yeah.
That's a little fun, little 3-cylinder turbo, right?
I think so. I don't know if it's a turbo. Maybe. It's just cool. We want to play.
Picturing you driving a Beat is making me is tickling me right now.
It's just certain things don't go together. So you got to do what you got to do. I know if I get it, Vicky's going to take it and steal it, just like the Miata. So it's no big deal.
You don't fit in the Miata.
I definitely don't fit in the Beat. You have no idea.
Yeah, he goes, I don't fit in a Miata. Let me try a Beat.
That's right. So what determines the market price?
It's so funny. Especially with stuff from the 90s, I'm finding right now, vintage American stuff, pickup trucks and otherwise. NADA is such a a lagging indicator of what market price and demand is. And I use Bring a Trailer and cars and bids have become kind of the golden standard, I would say, for what the market's willing to pay for some of these collectible 80s and 90s cars, because you're talking about somebody who's buying something sight unseen within a week of hearing about it, and generally paying double or triple what NADA or KBB might say a car's worth. And when it comes to obscure stuff, I usually use those two as a good indication of market price. And I also use Car Gurus a lot because they use their own pricing tool. And I find that price is so heavily dependent on not only the responsiveness of the seller, which, as I just mentioned, is really important, but also unique color combinations or just right place, right time. But I kind of take the average of the prices that I'm seeing and determine what I would list a car for, what I would be willing to pay for a car. And do not rely on KBB or NADA for anything collectible or unique, because they just have no clue. They really don't.
So, as every car auction that you watch on TV displays over and over and over again, in some ways, the market price is whatever somebody's willing to pay.
Yeah, I mean, Barrett Jackson and Mecum have made everyone think that they have these museum quality pieces sitting in their garages. And a lot of people are like seeing a, LS7 Chevelle from 1970 selling for $130,000. And they're thinking, ooh, my Chevelle's got to be worth at least, half of that. And meanwhile, it's just like, it's not an SS. It doesn't have a big block. It's not numbers matching. It's like, and then they're sitting there thinking their Chevelle's worth 50 grand. And so that's driving the market price up. But, one of the things I also look at when I'm determining what I'm going to ask or want to buy a vehicle for is, I see all these vehicles listed on, Auto Trader and these other classified websites. I usually, if they at least have this feature, I usually try to see how long the car's been listed for, how many people are saving it, because that's a really big gauge to me on, not only how much attention they're getting on the vehicle and demand, but if the price is adequate for the market demand.
Right. So, if you're not as experienced as you are and knowledgeable as you are, would going to a car broker be an idea that somebody should do, or should they call you up and say, hey, I want one of these, and have somebody like you find it? Or
yeah, I mean, I get people asking me that kind of stuff all the time, and I actually have a link on my website. It's a car finder. You put in what you're looking for, and I try to locate what you're looking for. And I think, car buying intimidates a lot of people, and if it's not scary to them, at least it's annoying and time consuming. And I think a lot of people would rather not do it. For me, it's like, my version of hunting.
Yep.
Or fishing. I'm not much of a hunter, or, I'm not into fishing. But finding good deals on cars is, I think, giving me the same satisfaction that anyone who does either of those things for sport might feel when they catch that 10-point buck or that 2-foot long trout or whatever. It's a rush. So if you don't get that kind of enjoyment out of it, then yeah, maybe you should have someone else do it for you. But I think anybody who is willing to put in the time to investigate what it means to find a good example of the specific car they're looking for, if you're willing to read through the forums and just sort of literally any car you can think of, if you're into it, you can Google search it And usually there's a forum post, or there's a article or a buyer's guide or something that'll kind of help you determine what to look out for, what the major issues are, what the enthusiast market's like, what the aftermarket's like, how easy it is to find parts for them. And, you know, if you're willing to spend a few hours just kind of researching, you should feel pretty confident in your search. So, you know, it really shouldn't intimidate you. And if you do find the car you're looking for, you know, don't be afraid to get a professional mechanic to look it over for you if you don't think you can do that on your own.
What about the pre-purchase inspection? I mean, what is your personal process?
Well, I mean, I obviously do all that myself. So my first when I first approach a car, it's all about curb appeal. And you know, there's a difference between knowing what a car is going to look like after a good detail and maybe a compound and polish of the paint, or even a repaint, and you know, the mechanical side of things. So people can really dress a car up and give the illusion that something's well cared for pretty easily, especially if you don't know what you're looking for. So, you know, pre-purchase inspection on the cosmetic side, for me, it goes back to trying to look for what I was talking about earlier, evidence of collision, paint work, body work. So this is kind of a two-part answer. The cosmetic side, if you look at the body lines, you look at where the hood meets the front fenders and where the front fenders meet the doors, and you look down the side of the car on both sides, or run your finger down the seam of all of those different gaps and tell if there's, on the driver's side, if it's narrower than on the passenger side, or if on the passenger side the door pokes out from the front fender, but the opposite is true on the driver's side. And that kind of tells the story of whether or not a car has ever been twisted or hit. Basically, you want symmetry on both sides of the car. And if you see symmetry, then chances are, if it wasn't an accident, it wasn't bad. Because I've seen so many times where a history report, you know, doesn't show an obvious collision, you know, simply because it wasn't reported on to insurance, or a police report wasn't filed. So, you know, and especially with anything pre-1981, because you can't run a history report on anything pre-1981, you have to do that visual inspection. So that is the real story to me. And I do the same thing on the back, you know, look at the trunk lines, open up the trunk, open up the hood, look inside, look at the frame, you know, if you can see it, if it's body on frame, and if not, at least just look at, you know, for evidence of crumple zones being pulled or pushed back out, or goop and bondo in places you wouldn't expect to see them, or, you know, you see it on the right side, but you don't see it on the left side. And those kind of tell you the history of a car. And in terms of like paint work, you know, you can see, you look for fisheye, orange peel, runs, particles. For the most part, even at professional body shops, when they repaint a car or certain body panels or do blending, you're going to see a difference in orange peel, which, if you don't know what orange peel is if you look at the skin of an orange, it's ripply. And then if you look at the reflection of any car paint, it should also be ripply, unless it's a really high-end exotic car or a show car. You should also see,
or race cars,
you know, or race cars, right? Really, even the best, especially evident on like a black car, you know, or a really reflective paint color, you'll see it a lot. And so one section may have more orange peel than another. And if that's the case, then chances are that's been repainted. You can obviously get a paint thickness gauge, which a lot of professional dealers, high-end dealers use, because it's an easy way to demonstrate that paintwork is matching around the car. But if you don't have a paint thickness gauge, look at the reflection of the paint. Look at the reflection behind you, basically, and look to see if you find any little dots or bubbles or what looks like pieces of tiny little hair or dust particles. Fisheye is basically like it almost looks like a pebble was dropped into placid water and then freeze frame right as the pebble was dropped in, but on a very small level. And so any little imperfections you see indicate that there's been something repainted. So a lot of times when body shops do that, if they do it really well, they'll apply clear coat and wet sand and apply clear coat and wet sand and do that enough times to where all the imperfections are gone. And I've seen really good repaints. And if it's really good, you know, don't worry about it. But, you know, if you're really trying to find that accident-free car, that's what you want to look for. So, you know, most mechanics aren't going to do that. Most mechanics aren't going to tell you that sort of thing. They're just going to be simply looking for things like oil leaks or, you know, U-joints or, you know, leaking water pumps or, you know, bad spark plugs or needs brake pads or whatever. And, you know, so that's the mechanical inspection you want to do. And I think, you know, the basics are all you should really worry about unless you're really mechanically inclined, in which case I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But check the brake fluid level. That's a really good thing to do because it tells you, you know, if there was a brake fluid leak, you'll see it low. But also, if the brake fluid looks gross, chances are the car wasn't really well maintained, or at least not serviced at the recommended intervals. Check the oil, the engine oil. Does it smell like gasoline? Feel it with your fingers. Does it feel like it has good lubricating properties, or does it feel kind of grainy and watery? You know, the smell test is a really important one because, you know, if your engine oil smells like gasoline, then you may have a cylinder that's been washed out and you may have engine scoring inside of your cylinder wall and your rings may be bad. You know, you want to look for the air filter. Just look at the air filter. If the air filter is filthy, it's another indication that the person who owned that car didn't maintain it properly. So that kind of tells the story. Look at transmission fluid if it's an automatic, and look to see if there's any metal shavings, or see if it smells burnt, or you know, has any weird discoloration. Look at the coolant level. Is the coolant topped off? If it's topped off, does it look like it's rusty? Do you see particles floating around in the coolant? You know, and obviously check for oil leaks. The really expensive one's going to be like the rear main seal, front main seal. Depending on the car, the water pump can be really expensive. But, you know, a simple oil pan leak, not a big deal.
Okay.
But, you know, that high level check is generally what I like to do. And if everything looks good with the fluids, then, you know, as long as the car runs and drives well, and definitely take a longer test drive than 5 minutes, you know, let it warm up completely, get it to full operating temperature, get it on the interstate, you know, drive on the interstate with it for 10 minutes straight and watch the temperature gauge and see if the temperature is creeping up. You know, make sure the heat works. Check all the blend doors. Check to see if it goes from the foot to defrost to center vents. Check all your windows and locks. You know, little stuff like that adds up, and every single thing that you find wrong with the car is a point of negotiation. And so even if you've settled on a price, you've driven 5 hours, and the person you've spoke to said, I'm not willing to take any less than, you know, 10 grand. You look the car over really well. You know, you get that rapport with the person to where they feel like they know you. You get to know them. And then at the end of the test drive, you say, look, you know, I really love the car, but you didn't tell me that the passenger side window didn't roll down, and, you know, the driver's side door lock isn't working, and the radio, the speaker's blown on the, you know, the rear passenger side door. and the antenna doesn't roll up and down. And, you know, so you can just like sit there and name off the things that you find and be like, look, I came here to give you what you were asking, but you misrepresented your car.
So-
And then you make a counter offer. And if they refuse it, you know, if the car is really special, you'll probably buy it anyway. But most of the time, that person, you know, feels badly for not telling you the truth, and they'll negotiate further with you.
Okay.
So that's why it's worth showing up. You know,
I think you went over like 8 of our questions right in a row for us.
Right.
So
I was like, but, and then
my
you
next
just, like,
question
went
is,
into it.
and then
nailed,
she just
you
did it.
nailed every one of them.
You just anticipated all of our questions.
oh, sorry.
No,
No,
that's
that's good.
awesome. That's great.
I'm sitting here going, I guess our questions were the right ones because she
I
just said
know,
them in the
Bill's
same
just like ticking them off there. So what about selling a car?
Well,
Don't lie.
it's all about responsiveness, like we've talked about, right? If you look at Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids, you see that the cars that are going for the biggest money, where you're like, oh my God, why did that sell for that much? And you look through and you realize that the seller was always very attentive to the questions being asked and provided any and all references, photos, and what else people were looking for. So when selling a car, if someone messages you and says, how many miles, are you the original owner? And you just respond, yes. Or, you know, short, quick answers. You don't answer their questions completely. You know, you're either unknowledgeable or lazy. People aren't going to want to buy your car. So, and a lot of people won't even want to talk to you on the phone about it. They'll just want to email or text. So as a seller, it's really important to be responsive, be open and honest. You know, I let the car sell itself. I take really nice photos, and that's really important. So if you don't feel like you have the right equipment or the know-how to take really good detailed photos of not only the car and all of its glory, but also the flaws, then you may want to consider hiring a professional photographer to represent your car. It may also be a good idea to record a walk around video while you're at it, while the car's all clean, especially. You know, and list out the good and the bad. You'll see a lot of classified ads. You know, they give a high level of anything done to the car, the history, and then they just say, you know, the good and 3 or 4 bullet points, the bad, 2 or 3 bullet points, you know, and then that's always kind of nice. You want to keep your ads like succinct. You don't want to tell a novel. You know, it's like I was telling you earlier about, you know, the people that write like 3-page essays on, you know, their 1998 Land Cruiser that they're asking $18,000 for, which has 300,000 miles. And it's like, you know, if you really need to say that many words about why the car is worth it, that much money, it probably isn't worth that much money. And so, yeah, short, succinct, elevator pitch. If they're interested, they'll contact you, and then you can go into more detail and take really good photos, really appealing photos. And whenever someone reaches out, you know, get back in touch and answer every question they have exactly and thoroughly, and represent your car as if it were your pride and joy, and you should get good money for it.
Can you suggest like where would be a good place to like list cars? Or does that kind of depend on what car you're selling?
Depends on what car, but there's a Facebook group for almost any car you can think of. And that's a really great way to get connected in with the enthusiasts of that particular make or model. Also forums, like, you know, for Volkswagen, Audi Group products, you've got VW Vortex, Beamer forums for BMW. You know, there's a lot of different forums that are, they have a, you know, a whole section for buying and selling vehicles and parts. And generally, even if the person who wants your car isn't on that forum, someone they know is, so they'll get spread around. And then also, you know, as a dealer, I get a lot of leads through Car Gurus. I got to say, Car Gurus is probably the best paid marketplace out of all of them. And then if it's a unique car, you may want to consider bringing a trailer or cars and bids, because I really do think that if you have something special, it's going to bring top dollar, as long as you follow the, seller's guide, so to speak, that I just talked about. But I mean, even bring a trailer now has a service where you pay a little extra and they have a professional photographer come and take pictures of your car. And their staff writes a brief summary of your listing, and it usually turns out pretty well. They hire professional writers, to sort of represent your vehicle for you. And even if you're not so eloquent with, summarizing the state of things with your vehicle, they can make it so that it's put into the most succinct and well thought out representation of what your car is.
So what about comparing private sale versus trade or dealer sale?
Well, I mean, dealers are always going to try to get as much money as they can for a car, within reason. Whereas private sellers may, honestly, sometimes I see people selling cars privately for more than I would think a dealer would try to sell a car for. And part of that is a dealer usually has what's called a floor plan lien, which, they borrow money from a bank to have a certain car in inventory, and every day it sits in their lot, it costs them money. So they have a financial burden for every minute that car isn't sold, versus a private seller who could afford to sit on a car for another year if they don't get what they're asking. And you hear that a lot. I don't have to sell it.
I know what I have.
I know what I got. So, and then there's other private sellers who are in a financial bind, or starting a business, or not going to be able to afford rent, or want to sell this car to buy a car that their heart is telling them that they need. So they're willing to take a hit in order to get cash in their pocket before that other car gets sold out from under them. And so it just depends on timing. And that goes back to the idea of buying with your head and not your heart. Because if you buy with your head, you may not find the perfect car or what you thought you wanted. And even if you don't find exactly what you thought you wanted, you may be happier with what you found than what you think you wanted. But if the car that you bought with your head is not what you ultimately want, you may be able to enjoy it for a small period of time and then fix whatever problems you may find and resell it for a profit. And in which case, you've just made some money. You can then take whatever that money ends up being from that sale and buy something better than what you were in the first place, and wait for the opportunity for when your actual, dream car comes up. And in that case, if the price isn't good, who cares? Because you've made enough money buying with your head to afford to be able to buy with your heart. And if money isn't an issue and you just want to do that anyway, then why are we having this conversation?
Well, they should call you at.
There you go. So I know this is a little bit off. I know you deal with more car enthusiasts in that side of the industry, but I noticed that dancing around the paddocks. Have you ever been involved in a build purchase, or have you?
Like if you were buying a car to turn it into a race car, or you're buying a car that is a race car, would the same thoughts apply? I mean, the process sounds similar, but the concerns may be different.
Yeah. Ideally, I would want to find a car that is either so stupid cheap to turn into a race car that it's a no-brainer, or I would want to buy a race car that's already built that I found an awesome deal on, that I could then race for a couple seasons and then resell. Maybe for what I have in it or more. I mean, but shoot, if I can resell the race car that I just bought for what I have in it, then I consider that winning. But, obviously if you're buying a car for Lemons or Champ Car, please don't buy with your heart. because
No.
your heart will get broken.
Mm-hmm.
So will your car, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have other people than yourself driving that thing, and that automatically comes with the possibility of it not being drivable when it leaves the paddock. And so, and also it can really damage relationships if you care too much about your car. So, especially for race cars, buy with your head and not your heart. And depending on what you're looking for, racing junk has a lot of cool stuff. But you got to realize that, like even for lemons, right? They say, oh, you buy a $500 car and you turn it into a race car. Well, most of the people buy their $500 car and then they have $7 or $8 grand on top of that that they put into the car, at least. So, yeah, I mean, most of the time it's cheaper to just buy one already built. And then they'll come with a logbook and you can see what's been done and how the car has done competitively. But if you're dead set on building your own, be prepared to do a lot of it yourself. And if you're going to hire a shop to do that, then hopefully you're the only one driving it.
Vicki's a big fan of building your first race car, as she covered in an earlier episode.
I am not a fan.
That's all she kept saying. She said, build your first race car.
No.
Big fan. Big fan.
I am a massive advocate of purchase one from another team. There's one for sale from Prompt Critical. What you're supposed to do with a race car. It's supposed to know what it's supposed to look like, what the inside setup should be. Then you can move on.
One of my friends here in the Asheville area just got into racing within the last year or so. I think it was maybe a year and a half. Went to his first autocross event as a result of me wanting to bring his wife, who I knew before him. Regardless, just sort of fell into racing, and within a few months was like, hey, I think I want to build a race car. So bought a pre-built race car from a Champ Car team that was misrepresented and needed, I think it needed an engine and a transmission, if I recall, but definitely one or the other immediately after him buying it. And they had sworn up and down that the car was healthy and yada, yada. They had all of their team information still written on the car. They didn't bother to take it off. And he still races that car now with all of that team's badging and everything on it as kind of a screw you to them, even though they've actually asked him to take it off the car.
Oh, no.
Which is kind of funny because he got screwed. He did. I mean, the car was cheap enough, but even if you buy a race car that you think is good to go, most of the time they're not road legal and you can't really test them too well. The test drive tells you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They are race cars. They've been raced by definition. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, obviously a race car is going to perpetually have issues, but generally when someone's selling a race car, unless it's because they're done racing, they're usually selling it for a good reason.
And you should find that out. I mean, you definitely should find out why. Like we bought.
God, he's been in the garage for like probably collectively 3 months worth of his time, at least, working on this damn car. Gone through everything. But he might as well have just built one from scratch by now. So it's hard to say what's good and what's bad. And this is a Honda product, by the way.
Oh, no.
This isn't, Crown Victoria or something obscure. This is what is considered by and large to be the most reliable car you can get for racing.
Lego of lemons.
Yeah. I mean, lemons, I mean, I think for lemons, the less reliable, the better, right?
Seems to be.
At least if you want to be featured in their YouTube videos.
Oh,
that's
sure.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're camera shy, just get a BMW.
To one day be featured on the But Terrible section of their YouTube videos.
I don't think we made But Terrible yet. We made what did we make? You Got Screwed Award. We did that one.
Yeah.
Haven't done
Oh,
But
yeah?
Terrible.
I got screwed award. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all Vicky's fault. She did it.
No.
Elaborate, please.
Well, Vicki drove away with
No.
all the safety equipment for the entire team in the
Tell
car
the whole
and didn't,
story.
it
Tell
didn't
the
answer
story.
the phone. Okay, so one of our cars broke. I know that comes as a shock to you. Luckily, you were sitting down, but one of our cars broke. And then the night before, our other car was broken. No, it wasn't broken yet. So one of our cars was broken. It was overheating, and the other car was not working. And it was like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we didn't know enough at this time. This was our second ever race. So we didn't know that the races started and stopped at different times. And the last race we were at stopped at 4:30. So it was like 3:30 or 4 o'clock. And I was like, oh, let's go, help out the team. We'll go grab some dinner and bring it back. So we hop in the car and we drive away. And Vicki left her phone in the paddock. And I didn't have mine either. But we drove away, and then they managed to fix the car much quicker than we anticipated. Plus, the race was going till 6 p.m. But we had all the safety equipment, the Hans devices, and helmets for the entire team in the car with us as we went to go get pizza. So,
So even though the car was ready,
Oh,
nobody could get in
my
because
goodness.
we had the helmets, we
Yeah.
had the gloves.
So you didn't so much get screwed as screw yourselves.
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did several other things that weekend. So we kind of got it for the cumulative ineptitude of our team. So
Yeah.
So it should have been the incest award.
something like that. But
That's
I'm
gross.
pretty sure we wouldn't have made the video if that was the award they were giving out. But whatever.
Yeah, that was a whole weekend. Everything fell apart.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which race?
Whatever.
Which track was that?
It was
Thompson.
in Thompson. We
Um,
blew up the
was
engine.
that this past fall?
No, it was our first year, so it was 2018.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
So we blew up the engine and the transmission at the same time in one car that's still dead. And then
Usually when one goes, the other goes with it. It seems.
yeah, well, the thing was the
The whole heat
transmission
thing.
didn't get to third anymore, but the driver kept driving thinking it was in third, although it was in second. And it was a 1974 Capri, so eventually it just said, no, I'm done.
Oh, but those are known so much for their reliability.
Oh, something like
So
that, yeah.
shitty. How odd.
Yep.
A 74 Capri?
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture that in my head because the only one I know of is like the little baby one from the 90s.
Oh no, this is much
No,
much
the
different.
little Capri looks like a little Mustang.
I'll pop one up on the background. No worries.
Yeah.
That's not the one that actually was the Mustang, is it? The Fox body?
No, it was way before that. So
Was that a Capri as well, though?
that was called a Capri, but nothing like the one we had.
Yeah.
So it's a fun little car.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
very
Trophy.
Malaise, huh? It was like one of those big floaty yachts. Big floaty
No.
land yachts?
No, small.
No.
Tiny.
I know the Capri is supposed to be tiny, but I can't picture anything from the early 70s that's small and tiny.
Oh,
Yeah,
this one's it's a European car. So
Okay, so it's
it
like a
looked
Ford
like-
Anglia kind of thing.
yeah, kind of. And then I'll pop it up while we're here. Okay. This is great podcast, by the way, me surfing on the internet.
Yeah, you gotta do the Joe Rogan thing and put little clips up on YouTube so people can see what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So the Capri. So that's it.
I mean, we can talk about, conspiracy theories and aliens too if you want to get a little more action on the.
Ah! Yep.
There it is.
Oh, that's a beautiful car.
I
Look at that.
know.
That's
Yep.
cool. That's
Yep.
cool.
We're doing
That thing
an
is
engine,
begging for like a,
engine
Chevy LS swap. Just
There we-
boom.
It's a Chevy, but it's not an LS.
I know it's a
Yep.
Ford product, so it's kind of sacrilege, but
It is. Yep. So that little car was what got us into this.
Mm-hmm.
you said
And,
Thompson. That says NJMP.
Well, that was where the picture I have
Oh, I
was
got
taken.
you. I
So
got you.
That was our first race. at
Oh, okay. So the
NJMP.
car actually survived beyond one race.
it did.
Yeah.
Two.
It finished.
Two.
That's right. It may be our highest finish ever. Our first race ever.
Yep.
So,
Oh man.
cute
So
little
is that
car.
one of the first ones that you guys built?
Yep.
Nope, we bought that one.
Oh, you bought it ready to go, huh?
Yeah, we bought it from Prompt Critical. They have a car on sale right now. We just don't need it. If anybody's into GTIs, they have a.
What year?
I think it's a Mark 6. So I don't know the year, but it's a full
that
race car.
That wouldn't make a good Lemons car.
It's a full race car. We've been passed by it routinely, so I highly recommend their cars.
But there's no way if it's a Mark 6, because that would have been like 2014, 15.
I don't know what year it is. It's race cars. I don't care what year it is,
Maybe that's a little newer than Mark 6.
It could be.
I'm not too familiar with.
Could be a 5.
When that switchover happened, but Mark 5 I think was from like 05 to 10.
It could be. I'll see if I can find it real fast while we're here. But
something like that.
It's a cute little car.
Anyway, that would be cool. I missed out on a rare opportunity to buy a Honda CRX race car.
That would be fun.
Just a day or two ago. It was listed on Facebook just an hour away from me. It was a time trials SCCA build, turbo D16, built motor, all the goodies, LSD, it had carbon synchro transmission. It had, oil cooler. It was running like 18 pounds of boost. It made like 230 wheel, reliable power, and it weighed 1,800 pounds with a full tank of gas.
Wow.
And the car was very, very clean, had a big old wing, splitter. I mean, rust free, and it was like $8,000. And I guess I messaged him just an hour or two too late because someone else beat me to the punch. But if that hadn't been the case, I'd be telling you about my new race car right now, because I was about to buy that sucker.
It's terrible when you miss one.
Oh man, that was the closest I've actually been to buying my own race car. And if he calls me tomorrow and says the deal fell through, then that will be in my garage in a heartbeat. It's
what do you think
really,
about
really
starting
cool.
your own team, or just?
I don't think that's the car that I would let anyone else drive. Frankly, I don't think that would be. First of all, I don't think it would be Champ Car legal. If it was, it would probably be an EC. But I think the point system would pretty much prohibit that thing from being prohibitive in Champ Car. And no, I mean, if I bought that, it would be time trials or road racing SCCA, and I'd be the only driver because, frankly, I don't think I would want to own a Champ Car vehicle for a team. Mm-hmm. I think that would produce too much anxiety for me.
Not with your head or with your heart. Not with your heart, with your head.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
How are you buying? How are you buying it?
My head is telling me to use my vocal cords to scream every time I think about owning my own Lemons car. So, no, I mean, let alone the cost of repairs, and you got to worry about storing it and consumables, and I don't know. I much more enjoy thrashing other people's cars.
There you go.
Not crashing. Thrashing.
There's the whole logistics of it too. So
yeah, I like to just show up. I mean, I'm happy to help move stuff around, set up the paddock and pits, and wrench on stuff, and pretend like it's my own car, and do everything I can. I'll buy parts for that sucker too. I don't care. I'm not afraid. But at the end of the day, that is, they say not in my backyard, NIMBY. It's, I don't know. That's probably a bad analogy, and I've been drinking a few beers, but
so the race car is NIMBY.
Not my car, not my problem. And I can walk away from a race if something happens and not want to rip my hair out.
So you're a serial dater of race cars, but have yet to tie the knot.
Yeah, some might call me a racing slut.
I would not do that because I'm sure I'd get in trouble with somebody who listens to our podcast.
Wheels, will drive.
There you go.
We'll drive the wheels off the car.
Yeah, and I won't even use protection.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I don't know any other way to end the podcast than that.
How does your upcoming
Don't end
season
it there.
look?
What's that?
How does your upcoming season look? Have you been
Well, I'm going to Road Atlanta tomorrow, actually.
been putting yourself out there?
Yeah. Well, you know, I've got a couple teams now that I've been, sort of hoeing around with, and no, I'm gonna stop speaking like that. I'm going to Road Atlanta tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be doing the 12-hour event or a 14-hour event this weekend with Kraken, the RSX, which I think now has a functioning head gasket and transmission. So
you'll test it.
They'll test it. This podcast will probably come out after the race, but
yes.
It's probably going to be available on YouTube if you want to watch the replay.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do a live stream. So last year that event was snowed out, and this year I don't think they're going to get snow. So should be interesting. Should be awesome. And then
you've done Road Atlanta before, right?
Yeah, Road Atlanta is probably my most racetrack.
Okay, I figured it was.
And then we're going to be doing, I think it's NCM in March.
With NASA?
No, I think that's another Champ Car event.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to be doing that event again with Kraken. Race Bar, I think, has signed up to do Lucky Dog again in Charlotte. And I think they're signed up to do a couple others later in the year. Jim Andy is currently deployed out in the middle of the ocean somewhere. So they're not doing as many events this year, I don't think, as a result. They usually only pick about 4 or 5 anyway, but main
they're
ones
doing
anyway.
the HPDE things a bit more, maybe.
Yeah, they do that, and NC Car, and they did drift events last year, a few of those too, which I didn't make, unfortunately. But I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to race with them later in the year. But yeah, I've got the Bathurst 12-hour on iRacing. I'm going to be doing with 3 other drivers on my team coming up in about 3 weeks. And then I've got the following month, the 12 hours of Sebring on iRacing as well. And actually, I think for that race, I'm going to be fielding my own car under the Swarm franchise. Dale has honored me with the gift of being a team captain. So I'll be getting a team of drivers together for the Sebring event. So should be pretty fun.
How long are the stints when you're doing your iRacing?
Well, I mean, one stint is basically about an hour. It's a tank of fuel.
Okay.
But we have been known to double, triple, and even quad stint in some cases.
Which mentally to me is always harder than doing it in a real car for some reason. Just feels mentally harder.
Gosh. At least with iRacing, you're not dealing with the elements. You're either freezing
it's strictly
or
mental. It's just
sweating.
Yeah.
Well, and I use VR. So by the end of an hour-long stint, I have plunger face,
Why does it look like you had a plunger on your face? Well,
it literally
sucks
my. Yeah, no, it's VR is not something I would recommend for a triple stint.
No.
But I don't have a triple monitor setup, so I'm kind of stuck with it. I love VR. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it's the way to go when it comes to sim racing. But yeah, it's not the most comfortable way to do it.
Vicki and Jen get sick.
Oh, have you tried it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, everyone I've ever had over to check it out has tried to, they have become nauseous very quickly. But you get over that, I think, after about an hour or two.
Oh,
when
we
you
did.
do it. Really? You
No.
kept going and you still didn't?
No, they didn't keep going.
No. Well, we tried. We did.
That's
then
the thing.
Then
You
we
gotta
took
get over the
Dramamine,
hump.
and then we fell asleep.
You got to get over the hump.
They were like, "Can we take one or two?" Well, two, because we want to play it for a long time. Well, that didn't work out.
We all crashed.
You walk in there, you're like racing, and an hour later, you're just like,
Oh, it wasn't an hour.
Right?
It was like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was still on the boot
Sometimes
screen.
it's a bad plan.
Yeah.
Well, you know, so many of those VR headsets have such a narrow field of view that I could see where it'd be a lot more nauseating when it seems like you're looking through binoculars, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you spin.
Oh yeah.
Because then
when I spin, I actually usually turn my head to look out the direction of the car that I'm moving in, and I've definitely jumped when I'm about to hit a wall before, sitting in my bedroom. But the headset makes a big difference. I encourage you to try it again I use a Pimax 5K.
Oh, okay.
And it's got like 180-degree field of view, so you don't have that same sort of binocular effect.
Could be. I think
really
we have
nice.
an Oculus Rift, I think.
Yeah, one of the guys on my team uses one of those, and he's generally one of the faster drivers on our team. So I think it's just one of those things. You just got to do it enough that you don't get nauseous anymore.
You get used to it.
Yeah.
And if not, then you just go race in real life and, make us look stupid.
I mean, think of it this way, Vicki. It can't be any harder than the tolerance you built up all these years of dating me.
Yeah. No.
Oh.
No.
Wow.
It's fine.
I'm going to the bathtub to sleep again tonight.
You gotta have one of those little DJ buttons with fart noises and stuff, like a terrible morning DJ when you make bad jokes.
Yeah.
No, we lose enough money on this podcast. We don't buy anything extra. Well, thank you, Miss. I hope you had a good time. It's always great to talk.
I feel like I didn't stop talking the entire time. So
you answered every one of our questions.
We had a bunch of questions.
Ran out of breath. Actually, I should have taken at least one breath in the middle of all of them.
Jen was like, "Okay, tell me which one to come in." And I kept putting her name and kept moving it down the list.
So sorry.
No, that was my fault. I mean, I guess I had a lot to say because I knew we were going to be talking about this, and I've just been sort of brainstorming about it the last couple days.
It was great.
Well, it was awesome.
It's hard for a magician to give away their secrets, but obviously I'd make a terrible magician because nobody would ever be under any illusions after talking to me.
So just in case we have a listener who wants the car but doesn't want to go through the process, or perhaps wants a car that you might have, how would they contact you?
Oh, the plug. I love plugs. So you can visit my website at rareexoticvehicles.com. And my ever-changing inventory is listed. My car finder application is one of the top tabs as well. And I can search for anything that your heart so desires, as long as you're willing to use your head a little bit in that purchase process as well. No, I'm just kidding. You have enough money, we'll find you exactly what you want.
If you have too much money, she's more than willing to help with that process too.
If you have too much money, then we might just end up doing business multiple times. But my Instagram is also Rare Exotic Vehicles. I don't update it all that often because I'm terrible with social media. Same thing with my Facebook. I am not a social media person. Forgive me. My personal Instagram, lara.is.racing. If you go to my dealership website, you'll find my phone number, my email, and any way you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. I would love to help you figure out how to get the car that you have always wanted.
And if you're driving, all those links are in the podcast notes. Just click on them. We try to make it easy.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. You have a great night,
really
miss.
great seeing you. Hopefully, we'll get to see each other again soon in person.
That would be nice.
Person.
Add another race would be fantastic.
Add another race.
Can't wait.
Well, if our schedules so coincide, are you going to be updating your upcoming race schedule anywhere?
Always.
That I can see?
I will send it to you.
Because even if I'm not racing, if you're close enough, I may just come and crash your paddock party.
Oh, we have that. We're definitely making at least one trip south. We're definitely going to VIR.
VIR's on the list.
Possibly twice this year. So that's getting close to you.
I like VIR. Which races?
Champ Car in December, and I think the event is in. I want to say it's in June, July, somewhere in there.
The 24?
No, that's work.
Come on, let's do a 24.
I'll do 24 as long as it's like 3 days.
Get Alex Levinson and I to run all through the night, and you guys can sleep like babies.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, if we did, I could probably Ironman a 24 with just one partner because I can definitely sleep while they're driving. Not a problem.
And you own the car. You know how rare that is?
I do. When I was studying for grad school, I used to live about 45 minutes away from school, and I would drive home. And if weird hours, very little sleep. If somebody was behind me on the one highway that had like stoplights, I would fall asleep at a stoplight and wait. And then the guy behind me would beep his horn, wake me up, and boom, I'm on my way. So I got a nap on the way driving home. So
that sounds like
not recommended.
Not DOT approved.
No. But you
know what you need? You need a Tesla.
No.
Then you'd never have to worry about anyone beeping at you again. You could just
go home.
You go to jail, but if window tint's legal in your state, nobody would ever know.
I don't think letting a car drive me is in my future.
Is that for personal or financial reasons?
Personal. I don't like it.
See. You know, as someone who does a lot of interstate travel, I welcome our robot driving overlords.
Oh, if it was, if all the cars were that way, I'm okay. But that's going to be a long time. I've seen the other people on the road.
Well, a lot of them need self-driving cars too.
They do.
Think about how much safer our lives would be.
Exactly. Never thought we'd talk about that, but we did. You never know what you get on Garage Heroes in Training.
That's right.
That's right. Everybody gets their money's worth because it's free. Thank you, Miss. Have a great day.
The dumpster for gold.
Exactly.
I'm kidding. You guys have such a great podcast. I've been listening to almost every episode, and ever since I found out about it, it's been my road trip entertainment. I get on the road, like yesterday, for example. I went to Roanoke and back, and killed some hours listening to some friends talk about fun racy things.
That's right.
So.
Get your dose of Dominating with Dawson. You never know what comes on after this.
Oh, Ben, I could listen to Ben talk about that too for hours. So, like I said, honored to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to share the secrets of the industry.
No worries. And we'll have you back. We'll come up with another reason to any excuse we can come up with to talk to a friend. We'll come up with something.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great
night.
All
right. Thanks. Have a good night, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Dominating with Dawson.
Mr. Dawson, you are requested to attend the 101 segment of Dominating with Dawson this week.
Present.
Jennifer, you going to help us out on this one?
Absolutely.
Sweet.
All right. Here we go.
So one of the things that we were thinking about when we're talking about this 101 stuff is the importance of driver's education, the importance of high performance driving, the importance of it in terms of the impact on safety on street driving, because it teaches you various different skills which make you a much better street driver. And this is specifically important if you're a relatively new driver, like our son, who was a brand new driver. because it teaches you more than, well, the stopping distance for a car at 50 miles an hour is 550 feet or whatever they're teaching in driver's ed, which doesn't help you at all. And we thought it might be wise to show why, if you have even a littlest bit of interest in high performance driving and going out there and enjoying your car driving, how it could actually help you in your real life, trying to give you another reason to come out to the track or autocross or whatever.
For sure.
So Ben, what would you say would be kind of some of the potential impacts that would help you from a safety perspective when you're driving on a street?
I think the number one thing is driving on the track and getting fairly good at it makes sure you're braking on the street so much better and so much safer. To me, that's the number one thing that always sticks out of my mind is especially just commuting back and forth from work every day. I watch how long people are on the brakes, and then I watch how late I roll up to a stoplight, and then when I get on the brakes, it's not dramatic. When I come to a stop, my hood's flat. Like it's not like my hood goes like and
it's not full race brake, but yeah,
right, yeah. I mean, but I still take a very short amount of time to brake, and I'm sure all the people around me are like, is that guy's brake lights broken? But knowing exactly how much time you need on the brake pedal is something that I think dramatically increases how safe you can be in traffic and how quickly and well you can react to upset conditions in street driving. I think the braking is, and this is just my opinion, I'm an idiot, but that's the one that sticks out to me is braking.
Well, I've got a different number one. I want to see what Jennifer says. Jennifer, this is even more fun. I'm having a great time now. Jennifer, what's in your opinion, what's the number one thing that it would help on street driving?
Not having been driving and racing for very long, I guess, compared to most people, I think the biggest thing that for me was awareness, because I've found that being, soccer mom, van, raising my kids and just driving here or there, you kind of like just don't pay as much attention.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on the track, like you have to pay attention. So, and I find that now on street driving, just wherever I go, like I'm constantly more focused than I was before.
That's a great point. Situational awareness.
Yeah.
You build driving on the track that you take to the street is also huge.
And not that I wasn't, when I first started driving, way back when I was 16, but like you just get so comfortable with driving over so many years that it just is so secondhand. You're thinking about other stuff, or you just kind of, it's just so natural. But yeah, I think it just kind of brought it back to being more aware of your surroundings.
Right. For me, like once I became a race car person, like all I'm thinking about is the driving. And I know everybody else around me is barely thinking about the driving, but that's all I'm ever thinking about is the driving. Like to the point where, like, there have been times where somebody cuts you off in traffic or somebody tries to be a little bit aggressive or something like that. And because every time I just always like laugh, I'm like, try that stuff on a race car driver. We're just going to laugh. Like, sure, do whatever little thing you think is disruptive, because I've had plenty of time to react to this. Like I'm completely ready for whatever shenanigans this person's about to do. And usually I'm just laughing about it. But getting good at driving on track means that street driving becomes a pretty easy game, and you totally are paying attention to it all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's my experience anyway, because I love driving. I'm not into cars, but I am obsessed with driving, and I love every second of it.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So to the surprise of absolutely no one, I actually have a different thought. So
let's hear it. So you're probably right.
No, well, yeah, obviously, but as long as Vicky's not here, I've got a chance, right? So
that was not me laughing. I wasn't laughing. I don't know who that was, Vicki.
I'm
laughed in my garage.
I'm in the bathtub after she hears this one. Good thing she doesn't listen. So it's kind of there's a number one, but there's a additional benefit to it. So for me, it's the vision, like trying to see as far as I can, and trying to, and through racing and the vision that you try to do with racing, it leads to almost an anticipation, right?
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
So like I'm traveling down a highway, I'm doing, it's a 70 mile an hour zone. So I'm doing 70, officer. I was doing 70.
No faster than 70 for sure.
70 locked in. And the guy next to me, I can tell he's coming in my lane before you really see the tire turn, or God forbid he uses a blinker, which we know that doesn't happen. But you can kind of just tell. It's like this little micro movement of
body language,
the car or the wheel or the driver or something, and you just know, and you just back off and let the idiot go. It's
well, you know what it is. That person that when they were riding in their car looking whichever way, when they looked over their shoulder, the weight of their head literally swings the wheel a little bit. So like when they look to make a move, the car swings a little bit. But you're right. Like you learn how to read car body language when you're on track, and especially if you're doing endurance racing where there's kind of mixed classes at all kinds of different speeds.
Yep.
But you have to get really good at learning to read a car's body language, and they cars and drivers telegraph their moves, whether it's intentional or not. So you're right. You see something happening in traffic, or a good benefit of vision that I wasn't thinking about when I foolishly said brakes, which I still believe is number one, was something I realized that I unconsciously do in traffic. But when you're in kind of tight traffic, I'm always looking several sets of cars ahead of the ones that are
through the cars.
Yeah, I'm looking way up ahead. If I see, I can perceive or see brake lights. But if I perceive pace changes a few sets of cars ahead, I'm going to adjust before the sets of cars between me and those cars do. So I'm already like letting off, and then you see other cars have to dive on the brakes. So I think it helps you be more elastic with traffic. If you can kind of understand difference in paces that are happening further up from you, then you can react easier and with less of like a panic reaction.
Plus, I'm sure if I do it, you do it. Not only are you managing those brake lights you see in front of you, you're also looking at the guy behind you and thinking, does he know there? And do I need to make some more room or less room because the idiot behind me is not watching?
I'm like, watch this guy. I'm going to slam on my brakes. Let's see if he hits me. That's
not my dominating with Dawson.
Yeah, you're right. You have to kind of be paying attention behind you a little bit too. Like, how has this person behind me been acting in traffic? Like, I'm kind of profiling everybody around me in traffic at every moment. Like, I've built a whole backstory on you. Like, I know your whole deal. Like, I'm ready to contend with you whether you know it or not. Like, we're racing. And what everybody else doesn't realize, if you're around me on the street, like, we're racing. You just don't know it. You lost. You don't know it yet. But you lost.
Yeah. The other fun one is always, when Liam was learning how to drive, and now I'm doing it with Mia because she's going to learn how to drive in a couple of years.
Yeah.
I'll sit there and I'll say, you see that guy up there? And they'll be like, yeah. I'm like, they have no idea that we're here. They have no idea that we are on this road at all. And they're like, how do you know that? I said, just watch. And then every single time, we're in their world and they're just letting us use some of their private road, and they prove it over and over. And Liam's starting to do it now, so that's a good sign. But Mia's
it's good to have that anticipation, right?
It is
a little traffic wisdom that you've earned, really, some earned traffic wisdom.
Exactly. So Jennifer, are you a better street driver now that you're a race car driver?
100%.
Absolutely. What about Jake? We've taken him out go-karting a few times. You think that's helping him? Is he starting to see it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's a strong interest yet, but he was, I'll tell you, he was really excited when we were at the airfield and he actually drove the car. He really liked that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I remember we went to the first ever time that Jennifer and Jacob had been to a real go-kart track, like a competitive one. Mm-hmm. And we get out after the first session, and Jacob just comes over to me and with a very straight face and dead serious, he's like, how are you passing me? And I'm like, what do you mean?
He's competitive.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's get him in a race car.
He's like, how are you passing me? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I didn't know what, there's levels to the answer. And,
right.
And he's like, well, you keep passing me and I'm going with my foot flat on the floor the entire time. And I'm like, I can 100% guarantee, because there's like 3 hairpin turns on this go-kart track. I can 100%
You're
guarantee that your foot is not flat on the floor the entire time around this track. It may have been at Disney, but it is not here. And he's like, no. And then the next time he gets out, he's like, my foot wasn't on the floor the entire time. I'm like, yes, I'm aware. So otherwise he would have been wrapped around a pole that would have been, so yeah. But
he's got a lot of heart. He just keeps going.
That's right. That's funny. His first time in a go-kart.
He's ready for a race car. Huh?
I know. How are you passing me? I'm sorry, Jacob.
This kid is ready to receive. He's ready to receive the knowledge. Let's get him in a race car.
Absolutely. HPDE 1, it's coming. He's already big enough. We probably should start him.
I think you can race when you're 14 in the SCCA.
Yeah, well, he's the size of an 18-year-old. He's tall, just like his dad. We'll get him out there, Jen. We're gonna get him. We're gonna rope him in. All right, very well. Go try and do this. It helps you drive on the street. Definitely help your kids drive on the street.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's right. So the old joke is, 90% of people think they're better than average drivers.
Right.
And the new part of the joke is, unfortunately, it's getting easier and easier to be better than your average driver because they're getting worse and worse. So
you got to keep your head on a swivel. I mean, the drivers around us are distracted. They're not doing their part to uphold safety in a lot of cases, and so you just being an accomplished track driver helps you watch out for yourself even better. I know I made some jokes about like racing everybody all the time. That's still true, but in general, it helps you look out for yourself and look out for other people as well. I mean, there's plenty of times where me being aware of what's going on that lets me help somebody else in traffic, cut somebody a break if I kind of understand where things are headed. Sort of anticipate, just cut somebody a break when they're obviously going to need it. I mean, what's the difference? It's an endurance race, right?
Actually, we wandered into another part of this subject, Jennifer.
All right.
Yeah.
When you're somebody new, somebody who hasn't started this, you worry about the safety of getting out on track. Would you like to compare and contrast? I'm doing my English professor summer reading assignment, right? Compare and contrast the differences in safety that you feel while on the track versus that you feel off the track on a regular road.
I feel like, I feel like the people on the track are paying way more attention than the people on the roads.
It's not hard to do. In spite of Ben checking his email on the straightaways from that last episode, but
Well, yeah. So even though they're more aggressive and going faster, everybody is very conscious of what they're doing and who's around them. And also, I feel like the safety equipment is really good, much better than like in the car. Like a 5-point harness is way better than the
3-point.
3-point.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing you got to realize for people who haven't been there yet, if you sit there and you drive on a public road, you imagine, well, I'm driving 60 or 70 miles an hour on a highway or 40 miles an hour in town. How can they possibly be safe driving 100 miles an hour on a track? Well, there's no cross streets. There's no cross traffic. We're all kind of going the same direction unless something goes very bad. So it's slightly less complicated, and it's definitely, I think, the amount of attention being paid by the drivers is many orders of magnitude higher. Nobody's eyes glazed over, looking at their cell phone, thinking about you are thinking about driving, and you are thinking about getting around this track, and you have nothing else to think about. Otherwise, you end up in a bad place. So, Ben, am I off the track somehow on this one?
Oh no, sorry, just scratching my face.
That's fine.
I'm not reacting in a negative way to what you're saying.
Okay.
You sound like you're totally on track, Bill.
It's about time. Just takes me longer to get around it than it does for you.
Take the W and go home.
So, track driving helps you be safer on the public street. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Bill.
No, thank you.
Thank you. No, seriously, for real. Dr. Livingston.
All righty. You want to do the kids? Kids and new drivers?
Let's let me see what this one is. Yeah, I mean, I've never done any of these kind of street driving things, but if you got something to say, I'll chime in.
Okay. Miss Jen, you ready?
I mean, I'm sure I'll have something to say.
I'm sure you will. It's your segment. You better have something to say. We're going to have our first dominating with Dawson with no Dawson. That would just be dominating then. That wouldn't be fun at all. All right.